Hello everybody, my name is Eugene. Welcome to an introduction of this particular module, but also an introduction for this particular course, management of the. However, for today, our lesson is all about the forces shaping education in this age, and particularly for this particular video, it's all about the changing landscape of education. Let's begin. Our first major discussion is a chapter from Ernest 2006, which is a book released by UNESCO. It's a very interesting discussion on how education is influenced by a lot of sociological paradoxes, but at the same time also influences them. Let's talk about it one by one. Our first paradox is pretty obvious: wealth and poverty. As the rich becomes richer, the poor becomes poorer. As we amassed certain wealth as a society, there are obvious stark difference within and between society, and that in itself is a tale as all this time. Another paradox that we've observed is health. We've become healthier, found ways to live longer and to cure illnesses, but diseases are becoming new. There are more things that have risked, reversing our advancements in this particular field. It's a paradox. And the third paradox, obviously, technological gain and gap. We've have so many advancements in technology, but there are still people who are left behind. As we progress more and more, these people that are left behind becomes way behind. The gap keeps on increasing. For our next paradox, is something that we can observe every day. Yes, nature helped us to advance our life, our society, our civilization. It has given us great resources, but also we have destroyed it. And then its destruction is also our own destruction. Another paradox that's more closely related to a political and sociological side is how gender differences have totally improved from way before. But it's not really an ideal case still, because there are still many factors and sectors that limit true gender equality. Another thing that we can also observe among the political systems all over the world is how a lot of countries have adapted democracy, because it believes in protecting individual rights. But there are still so many human rights violations and other issues. Surely this one does not solve everything. It's a paradox. Most importantly, education. Yes, we've made some massive strides of making education accessible for a lot of people, but it's still not for all. It's still not accessible for a lot of people. There are still a lot of innovation that ironically provides a digital divide and inequalities in education. And so we ask ourselves, how do we consider all these paradoxes and reconcile them? Well, the clear answer would be education. But the thing is, education also is not accessible for a lot of people. And this brings us to a paradox now. Education can solve them all, for the most part, but also we cannot really access education too. This is a critical nexus of education, and its accessibility is a problem. Then we have this particular issue. So we have to respond to this. And that is why today let's talk about the educational landscape. Bagarino mentioned this particular quote about education verbatimly. Education as landscape can be framed as a dynamic system. But what do you mean dynamic? Why is education dynamic? It's because it evolves due to internal and external forces like social, economical, cultural, technological, political, and environmental forces. These are obviously the ones we've discussed in the paradox. Education finds itself in the center of all these particular forces in the world, but at the same time, education influences them as well. It's like a two-way influence. It's being influenced and it also influences. And take note of these particular words from the chapter of Bagarino in 2024 about morphing of the educational landscape. Educational landscape must morph to cope with these challenges brought about by these global events. And among the global education's most urgent challenges is the transformation of its instructional component. So you see, education, as I mentioned, finds itself in the critical nexus, right? And the only way for education to actually influence these factors, that these factors influence it, is to basically respond to them. These are forces that are critical, and these forces actually give power to education to influence them too. Also take note of this, like the same chapter, Bagarina mentioned, educational leaderships must jumpstart transformation to maximize the benefits offered by rapidly changing technologies to education. That's an emphasis to management of DE. If you are a manager in DE, or if you're in the management side of DE, it's not just about your school in a vacuum. We also have to talk about the social dynamics, the political dynamics, all of those things, so that we can prepare for the future. We have a future-proof institution and program, especially for distance education. And so this leads us to a discussion of what we call University of the Future, which is pretty much discussed thoroughly by our professor, Bandelaria, in 2020. In a chapter written by Bandelaria about UOF, there are so many definitions of what it is, and surely there are so many agreements and disagreements. But one thing is for sure, according to her, that the future is here. Actions and transformations must be taken now for universities to remain relevant. It's not even just universities, it's about educational institutions as a whole, because the future is here. People can go to computer to learn themselves. Why do they need schools? Can schools be replaced? And that is why we have to evolve. But essentially, what UOF really means is being able to reimagine higher education institution, or let's just say education in general, to rapid technological, social, economic, and environmental changes. According to the discussion of Bandelaria, these are some of the 3 things we can ask if you adopt a UOF model. Like, what should be the role of universities in society, or like maybe educational sector, educational institutions. Second is, what kind of degrees should be offered, or what kind of education should be offered. And third, how should education be delivered, or how is the degree being delivered? So to relate this particular discussion to our particular course right now in managing DE programs and institutions, in an era of paradox, it's really important for managers or the management to balance accessibility and quality. And while we design particular courses in the productivity sessions and all of the subsets under DE, all the different domains, we think about its place in the society, education's place in the society, distance education's place in the society. Second, in a changing landscape of education, management must be agile and data-driven. We have to be innovative in terms of how we deliver education, because distance education specifically, because as mentioned, education is the critical nexus of solving things, but at the same time, these forces or these things also influenced education. So we have to fully prepare to be flexible and evolving. And third one is, effective management requires fostering a sustainable, future-proof education systems or programs such as UOF models. These are some specific things that we can do. And so now I have these 2 issues and queries for you to think about. If education is the key to solving global challenges, why does it still struggle to fix itself? Number 2, if learning can happen anywhere, anytime, with anyone, and will likely expand even further in the future, will there come a time when schools are no longer necessary at all? What do you think? And all right, this is basically an introduction to the forces shaping education in this age. Some of them will be further discussed with the fellow reporters. This is basically just an introduction of what you will be learning for this particular module. A very interesting discussion, I believe, will be done by our reporters for the next ones. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the comments. Bye.